Is hooray! Hi,
Yay.
hi everybody. For anyone tuning in right now or tuning in later, we are chatting today with composer Andrea Clearfield. She's an award-winning composer who's worked in orchestral music, opera, choral, chamber ensemble, multimedia, dance, you name it. I feel like you've done it, Andrea. And I'm so excited to talk with you today. Thank you so much for making some time in what I know is a very busy schedule.
Thank you, Audrey. It's just wonderful to be here.
Wonderful. I had the pleasure of meeting you. I think it's been almost 6 years ago now. We were recording an album of your oratorio, Women of Valor, which if you haven't heard of it out there, you should definitely go check it out. It's stunning music. But it was so wonderful to meet you, and I'm so glad we have another opportunity to work together a little bit here.
And you
Uh,
sang some of those arias, right?
I have. I want to start working on Ruth because that piece is killer. Oh my goodness. Um, this so today, I guess we're going to mainly be talking about your opera Mila, Great Sorcerer, which I'll be sharing a little excerpt of later in this week on Friday morning with a wonderful tenor, Aaron Blake, and incredible pianist Kyle, and we'll be sharing. It's about a 7 minute excerpt from that opera, which is really beautiful. Um, so before we jump into the opera, I guess I'm curious, what started your journey as a composer? Did you have a lot of music in the house growing up, or what started you down that path?
I'm really grateful to my parents because there was always music in the house. They played music in the living room. My mother played piano, my father played clarinet. I picked up the flute so that I could play with them. And, it's kind of started this idea of creating a salon later down the road. But this constant music as part of a way of life was really seminal for me. And I started making arrangements of pop songs for strings and percussion, and would just take them off the radio as a teen. And then I started writing some of my own music, and I was writing for my best friend who was a dancer. I didn't really think of myself as a composer, however. I was a pianist. I didn't really know that women could be composers when I was young. I didn't have any role models at that time. So I feel very fortunate that when I went to undergraduate at Muhlenberg College, I met my mentor. It was a great composer of opera, Margaret Garwood, who died in, I think, 2014. And she saw the composer in me. I was studying piano with her, and she said, "Oh, you're really a composer." And for 40 years, she supported me in making, just that shift, and then just being there as a woman in the field.
Wow, that's incredible. I actually talked a little bit about that last week with Janice Hamer, who I don't know if you've,
I know, Jan.
yeah, um, just the importance, especially for young women coming up in music, to have those other female influences in the field is huge. It's a game changer. Um, so that's how you got into composition. This particular opera has a lot of Tibetan influence, and even the folk hero singer that it's based around, Mila, is a Tibetan folk hero. So how did you get into that realm? I think I remember reading sometime in 2008.
Yeah.
It sort of started you off on this like 10-year journey.
It's kind of an amazing story. So in 2008, I was commissioned by a chamber group here in Philadelphia, Network for New Music. Linda Reichert was the artistic director, and she had a vision for a season called Mix, where she was going to pair composers and visual artists. And I was paired with the wonderful painter and visual artist Maureen Durdak, who had been going to a fairly remote and restricted area of northern Nepal, just over the border of Tibet, to do her own research. She was highly influenced by Tibetan iconography and was collecting clays from the region. So when she found out that we were to collaborate, she said, "Well, why don't you come with me to the Himalayas?" And of course, the adventurer that I am, I said, yes, I'd love to come. I had no idea that it would change my life and change my writing. It was such an important time for me. So I went up in 2008, and a series of really interesting meetings with people led me to record the last of the royal court singers in the region called Lomantang, which is the capital of Upper Mustang. And he sang for me that summer, and there was interest in having me return to complete all the recordings of Tashit Tsering. If he didn't have any heirs to learn his music, and he knew all of these songs that were passed down from father to son over hundreds of years. And so nothing had been documented. So I went back in 2010 with an anthropologist and ethnomusicologist, Katie Blumenthal, and we completed the recording project. And a lot of people wanted to sing for us, and it was just an amazing experience. And being up there at the top of the world, making these friends, the relationships that I had with the people, the land, the Tibetan folk music and ritual music, the Tibetan Buddhist music, all had such a profound impact on me and led to, as you said, a 10-year body of work that culminated with the opera.
So I guess from my understanding of the timeline, you sort of ended that project in 2010, and then there was this really serendipitous meeting in 2011 where you had been wanting to compose an opera around these themes.
Yeah, this is just one of those amazing stories. I'll never forget it. Synchronistic. I had been thinking about the story of Mila Arepa, who's not only a folk hero, but really, a venerated saint who lived in the 11th century in the Tibetan plateau. And his story is one of great transformation and inspiring Buddhists and people all over the world for ages, because he went from being a murderer to Tibet's most enlightened teacher. And so he shows through his story that transformation is possible. Human transformation is possible. No matter what you've done, you can redeem your soul. So I was very interested in his story, one, because the field work that I was doing was not very far from his birthplace, and also because of this idea of transformation. It's so important to me in my work. And of course, in opera, it felt like this could be a story that would really resonate with so many people and would work on the operatic stage. And I think it's a story that needs to be told. So I had that in my mind, and I'd never written an opera. It was just felt like a natural extension of all the cantatas that I'd written. And I went to hear the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which was a play, went to see it, written by a well-known New York playwright, Jean-Claude Van Itali. And at the Rubin Museum, which is dedicated to Himalayan culture. And I spoke to Jean-Claude afterwards, and I told him how much I really was moved by his work. And he asked me what I did. I told him I was a composer and I was writing a lot of large-scale pieces. He asked, what would you like to do next? And I said, I'd love to write an opera. And he said, on what subject? And I said, the life of Mila Arepa. And he looked so surprised. Actually, it looked like he was going to fall off his chair. He said, you'll never believe this, but I've just co-written a libretto with Lois Walden on the life of Mila Arepa, and the commissioners are looking for a composer. So how often does that conversation happen? It just felt beshert. So Jean-Claude brought my name to the commissioners, Jean Kaufman and Terry Eder, and they were considering a lot of other composers. And I was super thrilled that I was offered the commission.
That's wonderful. It just, it feels like such a natural fit when all those elements come together. But I love the way you described the sort of musical language in Mila as your internalized, oh my goodness, I want to make sure I get the words right. This sort of your internalization of the Tibetan music that you'd experienced and been immersed in. Instead of being overly Tibetan, you considered it an American opera.
Yes.
Which I think ties in so well, this theme that is familiar to all of us. We've all been in situations or done things where we're working to better ourselves or try and forgive ourselves or search for a higher purpose. And it's such a relatable theme.
Yeah, the story felt and still feels so prescient. And yes, I did feel that after 10 years of working with the folk songs and writing this body of work that was influenced by my experience, never attempting to be an authentic representation of Tibetan music, but really more what I was receiving in a personal way from this field work. I feel that the opera synthesizes it the most. I think about Bartok, who was making all of those recordings, and how at some point, like, all of that work became synthesized. And it's something that I aspired to and still aspire to. The sounds that made their way into the opera that are maybe more abstract, but they come from this almost dialectic of fierce, wrathful, almost violent sounds of clashing cymbals and drums and horns, and then almost a kind of a subtle, delicate, magical texture, peaceful. And so these I was able to achieve with a Western orchestra, also using some Tibetan instruments that were gifted to me during the trip. And I commissioned an instrument builder to build the instruments to make sounds that I heard in my head that I didn't know were actually possible to make, David Contact. And that was another wonderful synchronicity in the journey of the opera. So he built 8 instruments for me that got various overtones that I felt could connect the Eastern and Western sounds.
Sure. What were some of the Eastern sound elements that you wanted to incorporate? I feel like I hear a little, like some like drone sounds, or
Yeah, absolutely. The drone as a fundamental with harmonics, because the idea for me is that so much about this piece, and even the way that I feel when I listen to Tibetan ritual music, is about vibration. And I wanted that to be a part of the scoring because it's so much a part of the story as Mila transforms and his vibration or his consciousness, rises. I wanted that to be revealed in the music. So the kinds of instruments that David built for me were not electronic, they were actual analog instruments that were amplified, that were capable of getting these overtones through making drone sounds with strings or tapping or blowing. And they were amazing. I mean, I had wonderful percussionists who were willing to take a chance on these really strange instruments. And there was a kind of blend in the music that became really important in the story as it started to open up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just from the excerpts that I've listened to, what you achieved with the combination of Western and Eastern influences and instrumentation is really stunning, and it all makes sense. None of it feels forced. It feels very organic, the way it all comes together.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I was curious, especially when you were saying the vibrations left in the room. You were a composer in residence at, is it YATO?
YATO, yeah.
Yeah. Were you working on the piece at that time? Because I know you had been asking several of the other artists there. Sort of.
Yeah. So the part in the opera that actually had me the most worried, or I wouldn't say worried, but let me say, interested in really finding the right sound, maybe a little bit worried, is how do you create enlightenment in opera? What's the sound of enlightenment? What does that sound like as somebody awakens? And there were so many things that were going through my mind. I actually left that scene for much later in the process. I almost didn't want to write it until I was almost finished the opera. YATO, just backtracking a little bit, YATO is just a fantastic artist residency program that I was fortunate to have been invited to several times. And I was there when I first started the opera, and then I got a residency as I was completing the opera. And one of the other fellows was Laurie Anderson, and she would sit at the dinner table with us. And of course, we were all starstruck by Laurie. And so I asked a question at the dinner table. We would all talk about our work. And I said, what's the sound of enlightenment? What do you think? And Laurie said, it's the sound that's left in the room, the sound that resonates in the room, after you've left. And something about that just really stayed with me. So I think that actually became part of the answer to the composition.
I read that quote and I had the same thing. Like it really sat with me. And when you were saying like it's a vibration you were trying to achieve, I'm like, oh, this sounds familiar. It does. It's what a way to put it. Like what a beautiful way with words to describe that.
She's so elegant, with words. It was really quite an honor to be there with her.
That's fantastic. Just with respect to the Tibetan culture, I know you guys were very conscious about making sure that you were honoring that aspect of the opera. What are a few of the steps you took to ensure that you were, I guess, telling the tale in an authentic way?
Yeah, I think, for me, it went all the way back to my field work. I felt, that there's a big responsibility when, when you're stepping into another culture that's not your own, and to ask permission and to create reciprocal relationships, to give back and to really be in a place of learning and seeing, where the conversations are. And I feel that, with those relationships, it gave me permission, and the people that I met and recorded also gave permission for me to be inspired and working with their music as kind of a foundation for the works that came after. So that was really the first part of it, was just a deep respect for the culture and the people that helped me along the way, and the friendships that resulted. Because Mila Arepa is such a venerated figure, and it felt important also to speak to somebody in my city, in Philadelphia, who is a Lama and for whom Mila Arepa had a very important role in his own training. This is Lama Losang Samten, who was the former aide to the Dalai Lama and now is the teacher of the Tibetan Buddhist school and temple here in Philadelphia. And he's a longtime friend. We've created many pieces together. He was also a dancer. And so we got together, and I wanted him to tell me his stories about Mila Arepa and how the story shaped him as a Tibetan, and also to sing and recite the chants for me in Tibetan so that the pronunciation was just right. And most of all, really, to ask for his blessing in creating an opera around this subject. And he was really very, very warm and very helpful. He also felt that the story was so prescient and wants to be told and wants to be, kind of delivered in a more wide way.
I love what a rewarding arc of this journey you took, to its fruition with the opera.
It really was, and I have to say that it didn't have a fully staged premiere. It had a first look at the fantastic Prototype Festival. It's run by Beth Morrison. Wow, the performers were amazing. Aaron Blake was the lead. He was Mila, and of course you'll be presenting a little bit of Mila with Aaron. He was just terrific, and the whole cast. The chorus, the orchestra was the Knights, the chorus was New York Virtuosi Singers. I mean, everybody that I worked with, the director, Kevin Newberry, it was really just like a dream team. And for me, to be able to work in collaboration with so many people was really edifying. I'm ready to write my next opera.
Good, we're ready to hear it. We're ready. I could talk to you all day. It's so great to see you. But before we head out, you do have some exciting projects coming up that I want to make sure we touch on, just a few of them. You You are a busy woman. It's incredible. When I was reading your list of upcoming events, I was like, oh my goodness, when does she sleep?
Well, I feel really excited because I have a number of projects, and also super grateful because during this pandemic time, you know, so many things have been canceled. So I do have pieces that I'm working on that have premieres sometime. You know, one of them, I guess the soonest premiere would be next June. A lot of things were delayed. But I'm working on a 3-part piece as composer in residence with national concerts at Carnegie Hall. The theme of this 3-part work for treble choir, percussionists, and piano is what is home? And this is an interest of mine since I started doing the Tibetan field work. I was thinking, you know, what does it feel like for people who are leaving the Tibetan plateau and coming to America? And, you know, what does it feel like to be in migration? What does it feel like to make a new home? What do you take? What do you leave behind? So this idea of what is home, you know, feels important in so many ways. And of course, I started writing it before the pandemic, and now home has another another meaning because we've all been home and relating to our homes in different ways. So the first movement was what is home in your body and what is home in your place. The poetry is written by Sienna Craig, with whom I trekked actually on my very first trek. Sienna and Maureen were my trek partners, and she wrote a beautiful poem. I'm working on the second movement now, which is what is home in your speech. And this will be sung by young women, and there's just a lot that wants to be said. Permission to speak, and what is it that so truthfully needs to be said right now. So I feel like that will be a very powerful movement. And the last one is what is home in your heart, and that will be next year. And this is commissioned by a consortium of choirs, treble choirs. And I don't know if we have time for the other one, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, we've got 6 more minutes. We're good. We're on schedule.
The Mendelssohn Club, which is really a fantastic, large SATB choir in Philadelphia, has been around for a long time and has a history of championing new works. Commissioned me to write a piece on, well, let's see, it's AI and robots, but really it goes back to 100 years ago when the playwright Karl Čapek wrote his play Rossum's Universal Robots in 1921, which uses the word robot for the first time. And then of course it made its way into the language. And the piece is both a celebration of the 100-year anniversary of this play, but through the lens of Ellen Frankel, the librettist. The piece is about what does it mean to be human? What is the human in the machine? What is the machine in the human? And what does it mean to go beyond the binary? So it's a very, very exciting project. It'll be a big work for chorus and stage size custom built instruments by David Kontak. I was so pleased with the work that we did together for the opera that I asked him to come on board, and so he'll be building instruments for this. And that will be done, we don't have a date exactly yet, but I think they're planning for the fall of 22.
That's incredible. I'm really excited for you. That's really exciting. I'm curious what the musical language of that second piece will be. Very stage-sized instruments. Where will it be? Do you know where it will be premiered? Obviously,
we've been talking about a number of venues. I'm not sure that's been decided yet. Again, things were moved around because of the situation right now, but I think it will be a large venue. My hope is that the choir will also have a choreographic element. Incredible. And that there'll be a chance for them to manipulate the instruments as well.
That's fantastic. Very excited for you.
Yeah. And I can't wait to hear you sing some of the opera.
Good.
Which part will you be singing?
We're singing an excerpt around the barley song. So we'll get to hear Aaron's beautiful voice. It's such a lighthearted moment. You just hear his youthfulness and like his optimism, and then you're met with these strident cascading lines that the mother has. Like it's such a great juxtaposition, those two, which I'm excited to share. The plan is to share it on Friday morning, so you guys make sure you check it out. I'll add the link to our interview in the comments section of the piece and vice versa. So if anyone missed either thing, you can find it very easily. Thank you again so much for your time and for allowing us to share a piece of this beautiful work that you created.
Thank you so much, Audrey.
Yeah, it's really been a joy to work on. All right. Well, thank you so much, Andrea, and I'll hopefully see you sometime in the future.
I hope so.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.